What's up, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Revive Outdoors. If this is your first time to our channel, just want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you are coming back to the channel, thank you for coming back. In October, we did a hat giveaway, and I'm excited to announce the giveaway winner. So if you were one of the first 5 people to comment in any of our October uploads, you were entered into our hat giveaway, and the winner is Landon Stark. So Landon, if you will reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, or through our website, we'll be happy to get you that hat of your choice shipped out. And then for November, we are going to be doing a knife giveaway. So my favorite knife is a Haviland Piranha knife. I love that knife. It is my most favorite knife out there because you can just switch out the blades really quick. I can cape out a whole deer and pack it out of the woods. So love that knife. So the first 5 people to comment in any of our November uploads, then you will be entered in to win that knife giveaway. But just something fun that we can do here for you, our audience, here at Revive Outdoors, just a way for us to give back. But I am really excited to dive into the details of today's episode talking about scent control. So there is a very wide array of content that is out there for you to consume when it comes to scent control, but a lot of it is marketing based and not factual based. It's not scientific based. So we're going to talk about the science and the data and the research that is proven out there when it comes to scent control today. So I'm really excited. I really hope that this helps you become a better hunter. I hope it helps you achieve your goals as a conservationist out there in the outdoors when you're deer hunting. This season, we have a Hunting 101 playlist. It's both for beginner and experienced hunters. It's just a playlist that I've put together for each and every one of you to get what you need to the top of your brain. And so there's so much out there for us to remember. It's a good refresher or a good learning opportunity for you in that playlist. So be sure to check that playlist. This episode will be going in that playlist. One of the most sought after, kind of the favorite videos of that playlist is the wind and thermals episode, which will play right into this episode on scent control. But I'm excited to jump into the details, so let's go ahead and get started. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about 4 different things. The first thing is going to be the scientific method, so the data, the facts, the science behind scent control. The second is we're going to be talking about the anatomy of a whitetail deer. So it's important to know the biology because that helps you understand why they use their nose and how scent control plays such a huge factor when it comes to successful harvest in the whitetail woods. The third thing that we are going to talk about is how to beat a deer's nose, the number one proven way to beat their nose. And then the fourth is the products and the things that do and do not work when it comes to achieving your goals in regards to scent control in the whitetail woods. First thing let's start with is the scientific makeup of our human scent, our human DNA, our genetic makeup. So if you're not aware, there is a gentleman by the name of Tom Brownlee. He's been interviewed by several different people, but the Southern Outdoorsman podcast has had him on, as well as the Mobile Hunters Expo. I have listened to his talks, and what I love about him is he's a canine expert. So he comes from the dog world. A dog's nose is very similar to a deer's nose, and he has a lot of scientific data and facts that actually back up what he is saying. And if he doesn't have any scientific research or data or any kind of proof to what he is saying or what others claim to say works when it comes to scent control, he is honest and he tells you that. So I'm going to reference a lot of what he has to say in today's episode. And so when it comes to the scientific makeup of human scent, there is 3 things that you need to know. So 85% is predetermined. So it is our unique scientific fingerprint when it comes to the human scent. So that is it's made in our DNA, it's our genetic makeup. There is nothing that we can change in regards to that 85%. So the remaining of the 100%, there is another 10% there. So that gets us to 95%. That 10% is based off of our diet and environmental factors. He doesn't really talk a lot about the environmental factors, but he talks about diet. Some question that he got that I think is really funny is he got, if I become a herbivore like a deer and I become a vegan, so if I have a vegan diet, will that make me smell less like a carnivore, less like a predator, and allow me to blend in more with the deer? The answer is no. Sorry, you can't become a vegan and end up smelling more like a herbivore and be, it's just comical to me that someone would ask that, but it's a reasonable, I guess, a question to ask. So there we are at 95%. We have no control over whatsoever, scientifically proven. And then this remaining 5% are environmental factors that we can control. So these are going to be things like the soap that we use, the detergent that we use, the body wash that we use, the deodorant that we use, the toothpaste maybe that we even use. So those are things that we can control. So the reason that 5% remaining is so important, because that's the only part that we have control of. That 5% can make 100% of the difference when it comes to harvesting the whitetail buck that you want to harvest this season. So that's from Tom Brownlee. He's a canine expert. He's a professor. He has a lot of knowledge in the whitetail world. If you want to hear more from him, you can jump onto the Southern Outdoorsman. They have a video podcast, and they have podcasts on any of the medias out there where podcasts are listened to, but that's a really great resource for you. The next thing I want to talk about is the anatomy of a whitetail deer. So there are 3 things that we need to be focused on as whitetail hunters. The first is going to be their eyesight. Second is going to be their ability to hear. And third is what you came to this episode for, is their nose, their ability to smell. So when it comes to their eyesight, big takeaway here is that they can see on a different UV spectrum that we can. So for me personally, I avoid hunting where I am in direct sunlight, because I know that that's going to play a factor. We can have a whole nother episode on deer's eyesight. Just comment if that's something that you want to see, but we can go into a really in-depth explanation on their eyesight. And then next is going to be their hearing. So their ability to hear. I was doing some research, and some of the facts that I saw out there, MeatEater had actually put out an article on this, and it says that a deer that is downwind, so if they're downwind from something, they have the ability to hear over 500 yards away. And then if they are upwind, they have the ability to hear over 200 yards away. Obviously, wind speed is going to come into that, but it's really amazing to hear that they can hear so well. And then if you've ever noticed, a deer will actually position one ear this way and one ear back that way, they actually have the ability to kind of hone in on what they are listening to. So if you ever see their ears moving around, pay attention to where they're moving. If they're moving towards you, you should probably sit still for a second and not move, because they're trying to figure out what you are. But the last portion of that third thing is going to be their nose, which is why you came to this episode. So their nose is the biggest thing, and the reason that is because they have glands all over their body that play into their anatomy that help them communicate with one another. It helps with breeding, and it helps with that rut season. So the glands that they have are going to be the preorbital gland on their eye. They have a forehead gland. They have interdigital gland. So interdigitals between their hoofs. That's how, when they are wounded, dogs are going to be able to track them. They have a metatarsal gland that is going to be on the outside of their leg that is not really used a lot in today's whitetails. And then they have their tarsal gland, which is going to be on the inside of the legs, what a lot of people refer to as the hocks. That's going to be those things that get really stinky and gross looking in the rut that they're going to use a lot for their breeding season. And then the last gland that they have is their penile gland, their penis gland. I think it's called perpetual or prepucial or something gland. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but that gland is on their penis. And so those are the glands that they're going to be focused on, but the main gland that we're going to be talking about is in their nose. So the scent glands, the scent receptors that they have in their nose are what we want to focus on in today's episode, because that is the key to achieving the goals that you want to achieve in the whitetail woods. When it comes to the scent receptors in a human's nose versus a deer nose, there are drastic differences. When you're looking at the scent receptors in a human versus a human will have about 400 scent receptors in their nose, and we can smell pretty good. But when it comes to a deer, they have 300 million scent receptors. So they have an estimated 300 million. And then in addition to that, if you've ever seen a dog or a cat really work their nose back and forth or lick it, a deer licks the nose and you see those nostrils kind of flaring in and out. That's called a sniff rate. So a deer, it's estimated that their sniff rate can increase that 300 million scent receptor number 10 times the amount. So if you see that deer really working his nose, he's trying to get as much scent in and out as possible so he can really dissect what he's smelling. So if you, again, hear that, that's 400 scent receptors to what we have to 300 million of what a deer has. So that's really crucial in understanding. At the end of the day, you're really not going to beat a deer's nose. When it comes to a distance that a deer can smell away, is estimated that they can smell up to a half mile away. So what does that mean for us? So if you have a buck or a deer that's coming to the same camera, the same maybe pile of corn every single day, and then all of a sudden you go to hunt it and they're not there, well, there's probably a reason behind that. It's not that they just didn't show up. The chances are that they smelled you before you even could have seen that they reacted to your scent. So that's why that video on wind and thermals is very important to understanding where your scent is traveling and going versus where you might think that it is going. So be sure again to check out that episode. But the biggest thing to remember when you are talking about scent of a whitetail and their ability to smell is to realize that that's their #1 survival instinct. So if you compare it to like our eyesight, so if you imagine if you just went blind today, how much that would impact your ability to survive and to prevent harm in your life, that's the same thing with the deer's nose. So if you took their ability to smell away, then their chances of survival would drastically decrease. So if you kind of look at it as if we can see it, they can smell it, then that's a really good way to understand the importance of knowing what scent control is and how it impacts your whitetail hunt. And that leads us right into our next topic of how to beat a deer's nose. The only way, I want you to hear this, the only way that you're ever going to beat a deer's nose is by playing the wind and thermals. There is no other way that you're ever going to beat a deer's nose unless you play the wind and thermals. And that's why that wind and thermals episode is so important. I like to call it a technique called elevatoring into the stand. And so the elevator method is if you could put an elevator shaft underneath your tree stand and let it come right up into the tree stand. That's obviously the easiest way that I can describe how you need to come in without disturbing the deer. And the reason I say that is because when you walk, no matter what path you take into that stand, you're going to create a scent wake, is what it is called. And that scent wake where you've just walked across the ground is going to be there for about an hour. So that's why when I'm hunting a big deer and I'm trying to beat it back to its bed, that's why I might get in there 2-3 hours before daylight, because I want that scent to dissipate, and then hopefully my wind and thermals is going where I need it to, away from the deer's direction of travel. But if you go back and you listen to that wind and thermal episode, pair it with the elevator method, it can be a really deadly combination when it comes to your whitetail success in the woods. So the elevator method is very important. So that scent wake, you have to remember you got about an hour for that scent to dissipate where you've walked. And then if you're walking through the woods and you're grabbing onto things and you're breaking limbs, or you're walking through briars and you're breaking those briars, it's very important to know that anytime you break something, that chloroplast is exposed and then bacteria starts to come into play, and that can change that scent dispersion from 1 hour all the way to 60 days. So 60 days, which is very important when it comes to making mock scrapes. So if you're out making mock scrapes like I do, we have a mock scrapes video in this Hunting 101 playlist. It's always important to break those overhead branches because it's going to expose that smell and it's going to have it in the air for up to 60 days. So if you always wonder why deer come up and they smell a specific new scrape that you've made or a mock scrape that's been made, it's probably because of that branch that has been broken and they can smell that in the air. So it's very important. Another way that we can beat a deer's nose is through the external factors that are available to us. So that's going to be things like waterways. It's going to be things like interstates or highways, roadways, and then it's going to be like cliffs or sharp things that are going off the backside of us or the area where we think the wind and the thermals are going to suck to. So let's talk about waterways and interstates because they are very similar. So waterways, specifically, when you have a tree stand here and you have a waterway pushing, you want that scent to disperse by vacuum out with that waterway. If you think the deer are going to be coming from this direction, what's going to happen is it's going to sit on the surface of that water, push down, and it's going to disperse into the area down from it, and you're going to get busted without even know it. But if you have that tree stand here, the water direction is going that direction, and you have deer coming from this way, then that is going to put you in a perfect position for your scent to disperse, to kind of vacuum out with that waterway. The scent is going to sit on that surface of that water until it just gets into any kind of vegetation that it finally comes to a resting place on. Interstates can be the same way, highways can be the same way. Obviously, you have to be the legal distance from those in your state according to laws and regulations. But if you are close enough to an interstate and the direction of travel is, you're sitting on especially like a highway or interstate where it's a divided, if the direction of travel is the direction you want your scent to go, then you're good. If the direction of travel is opposite of that, you're probably never going to win in that situation, because what's going to happen is it's going to create a turbine effect. It's going to vacuum out and just blow your scent all into the vegetation of where the deer are coming from. So a lot of people wonder, man, why do I keep getting busted when I'm on this area where there's a waterway, or why am I never seeing deer because there's interstate and the direction of travel is this way? It's probably because you've never thought about how that vacuum is taking place and how it's negatively impacting or positively impacting your stand. And so if you look at Ray, he's on our team. He killed this buck called Lefty last season. I knew that he needed to hunt this specific spot on this specific day because it was going to be perfect for vacuuming out his scent. He had his tree stand here. Deer we know was going to travel from right to left. He was over in this like cutover thicket area, and the wind was blowing off the ridge towards the interstate. Well, what happens when it hits that interstate, the direction of travel was this way, and so it was pulling that scent down with the wind away from that buck, and then when it was hitting that interstate, it was sucking it down the interstate and dispersing it all back the direction that he came from. So he was able to come in, get in that stand, and all his scent was pushing back to his left away from where that deer was going to go. Deer does exactly what it's supposed to, comes and works this mock scrape that we had out in front of him, and he was able to harvest a 157-inch whitetail here in Alabama, which is a giant if you're not familiar with Alabama, just a heck of a deer. So that's one way that you can use those external factors to your advantage when beating a whitetail's nose. In this final part, I want to talk about the products and techniques that do and do not work. Now, I know that this is going to ruffle some feathers because it's going to go against everything that you've been taught or everything that you've been proven to have success. But if you just bear with me in this portion of the video and you watch it all the way through, I promise you it is going to benefit you in the whitetail woods. So let's start with the things that do not work. Again, can't get mad at me, it's scientific based and it's factual. So the things that do not work, I'm just gonna read a list off of products and techniques. So technique, smoking up your clothes, doesn't work. Products, Ozonics, doesn't work. Scent sprays, doesn't work. Laundry detergent, doesn't work. You talk about nose jammer, it doesn't work. Scent lock, it doesn't work. Camo dust, it does't work. The dead downwind products, they do not work. So all of these things do not work. The scent control industry has to be a multi-million, if not a multi-billion-dollar industry. So you have to understand the marketing tactics that are being used to get you to spend your hard-earned dollar. So if you take out the fact that these people are trying to gain a monetary value from you, it helps you understand what I'm about to say. The same exact products that I just said do not work, do have the ability to work. Okay, whew. We got that out there, so I hope you weren't mad for too long, but the products that I just said do not work actually have some scientific data behind them that actually do work. So if you remember at the start of the video, I said that the makeup of our scent as a human is broken down into that 85, 10, and then 5%. That 5% can make 100% of the difference when it comes to your whitetail success. So this right here, these products, these techniques can be a part of that 5% difference that it can make for 100% of your success. So let's start by kind of breaking down each of these. So smoking up your clothes, I used to do it. I've had some success with it. Whether it was the curiosity of the deer or not, I don't know, because what Tom Brownlee, he says is that smoking up your clothes, they smell the smoke and they smell you. A lot with all of these products is they smell you and they smell whatever you have done. And so I was smoking up my clothes all the time when I first started bow hunting because I wanted to get close to the deer. I heard it was an old Native American method to cover up the scent, and so I started doing it. Went out to the woods, I was ground hunting. I had a buck literally come down, I'm sitting on the ground, come down an 8-point buck, probably a 2.5, 3.5-year-old deer, so he's got that level of curiosity to him. He's not quite mature enough to understand what's going on. He licks my knee and he puts his head down right here beside me. This probably went on for 15, 20, 25 minutes. I ended up having to throw acorns at him to get him to leave. So not really sure what was going on there. He probably did smell me, but he definitely, something with the smoke was making a difference there. But at the same time, my hair, my hands, everything that I touched, everywhere I sat in a vehicle, everywhere I went in my house, it smelled like smoke. So for me, I just decided to stop doing it because I was tired of smelling like smoke everywhere, having to take this really intense shower where I wash my hair 2 or 3 times. So does smoking work? Maybe. Does smoking not work? Maybe. It's not really proven scientifically whether it works or not, other than the fact that we know that a deer can smell you and they can smell that you smoked up. So they're not necessarily, one's not masking the other, it's just there and taking place. Next thing I want to talk about is nose jammer. So nose jammer is a very popular product. What Tom Brownlee says about these type of products is that it can overwhelm a deer's ability to smell. So it's literally jamming their nose. However, it kind of puts them in a fight or flight mode, and most of the time they're gonna flee, they're gonna run away. When they lose that #1 survival tool that they have, a lot of times they're getting out of there. So although all these products, you're gonna hear testimonials of, man, they were downwind of me and it worked. There's always going to be some scientific evidence that says otherwise, and there's going to be somebody that says, hey, it worked for me. I'm not saying that they might not work. If it gives you the confidence, which is what Tom Brownlee says, if it gives you the confidence, keep doing it, because the more confident you are on the stand, the more happy and enjoyable your hunt is going to be. So that is kind of my bottom line when it comes to all of these products. Next thing I want to talk about is deer pee or mock scrapes. So for me, this is going to be the #1 thing that I use when it comes to covering up my scent. And it's not necessarily covering it up. I am choosing one thing that they desire over another. So they desire to breed in the rut window more than they desire survival. And we've seen that time and time again where a buck chases a doe, or he smells that doe in heat and he goes crazy and he runs across wide open fields and he gets shot. So for me, in the rut, that testosterone's higher, they're wanting to breed more, and so when they're running and they're kind of wide open in the rut, I want to use that deer estrus to pull them out. It's not that they're not going to smell me. They probably do smell me, but the risk is worth the reward for them. And so when you're using like a real doe estrus scent, like with Native Scents, and I have that whole mock scrape video you can go check out, it's very useful tool and a very proven tool that I've used and many other people have used. I don't think that it negates the fact that you should do something for your scent control, but I think overall what you need to do is you need to take into consideration, what can I do for that personal 5%, and then put that doe estrus out in the rut and hunt it immediately. So another thing, another product that is out there is going to be Ozonics. So ozone generators are proven to change the makeup of a scent molecule. So ozone generators I have personally used in houses where there was a very heavy smoke smell or a very heavy drug use smell, where they cooked meth or they used it for activities that stunk. And so you put these ozone generators in a house, and I know that it takes that out of the house. It takes that smell out of the house. So does Ozonics do what it's advertised to do? Yes. What are the harmful, the factors that might not be something that you want to expose yourself to when it comes to ozone generators? So if you read all about the dangers and the safety precautions when it comes to ozone generators, the big thing is that it can almost leave your lungs like sunburned, is what it's called. So if you are one of those people that plugs up an ozone generator in their cigarette lighter and drives down the road, you're exposing yourself to ozones that I just personally wouldn't do for myself. I wouldn't do that. There's not really any kind of proven scientific evidence that says, hey, if you put it in an ozone generating bag, you turn that bag off, you pull your clothes out, you put them on, that ozone's still there. I couldn't find any kind of factual data on that. But when it comes to using the ozone machine above your head in a tree stand or in a a shooting house or in a closed-in blind, I would just caution you when it comes to that to understanding what the safety risks are and the health risks are in regards to that. It says that it can cause headaches, it can cause issues with your sinuses, it can cause long-term lung damage. And so I would just make sure that you understand the risk versus reward, kind of that buck. He might go after that estrus knowing you're there, and he might die. You might use Ozonics and it worked perfectly fine for you. 30 years from now, you might have some kind of lung issue. So it's just making sure that you understand the risk of those things. And I know that ozone generators produce a large risk indoors for both people and for pets. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of those, that they can take place in the woods, especially if you're using like a shooting house or a blind with those ozone generators. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is like the camo dust, the dead downwind, like the detergents, the bath soaps, all of those products that are kind of like, do they really work or not? For me, what I have decided for my personal scent control is that I want to make sure that I am doing everything within my control to decrease my scent. However, I know that if I wash my clothes and scent-free detergent, yes, that is helping. But am I also drying off when I get out of the shower after using scent-free soap? Am I drying off with a towel that is also washed in scent-free detergent? Yes or no? Is my washcloth, is it scent-free? Has it been washed in scent-free detergent? Is my wristband on my watch? Is my hat? Is my bino harness? Is my saddle? Is all that scent-free? Probably not. And so there's a lot of things that we're just never going to be able to overcome when it comes to scent control. So you can be like obsessive, like OCD when it comes to scent control, or you can understand the most important factor you have to beating a whitetail's nose is going to be playing the wind in thermals. Does that 5% come into play of making 100% of the difference when it comes to your success? Yes, it can play a factor, but at the end of the day, wind and thermals are always going to be the most important thing that you have to work with as a whitetail hunter. So in summary, the most important thing that I want to leave you with is wind and thermals always win and beat a deer's nose. Scent control, that 5%, can make 100% of the difference, but if it's going to lead to you being obsessive and not enjoying your hunt, then I would tell you not to do it. Focus on the wind and thermals, go out and enjoy your hunt, and have some fun. Hope all of this information has been helpful for you today in this episode. My goal in any content that I put out is always to be helpful to you and make you a better whitetail hunter, make you more efficient, dial in your system, whatever the topic is. That's why we're also going to be coming out with an episode specifically on topography, understanding different terms that you hear out there in the topography conversation and helping you break down how to map a whitetail. There's all these videos on mapping whitetails, and honestly, they're very confusing. It took me a while to grasp it all, kind of like the wind and thermals and the scent control topic. So I'm going to come out with a topography episode as well that helps you. But just want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. Be sure to comment anything you want to see in the future, and we'll see you on the next one.